Hi, good morning. My name is Joanna Nelson. Thank you so much for joining us. I am with the New Mexico Economic Development Department, and you have tuned in to one of our webinars as a part of our webinar series that is ongoing, where we highlight programs and opportunities to help businesses and communities. Especially since the COVID-19 pandemic, we have tried to put a focus on highlighting opportunities that can be helpful as recovery tools as we deal with the pandemic. So thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be covering an overview of government contracting. And we've got some great guests here today to walk us through that and help us navigate some basic topics. Before we get started, I did want to share with you that this webinar is being recorded, and we will share the link to our YouTube channel and to the recording after the presentation. Hopefully we can get that out this afternoon. And then we will also share a PDF of the presentation. We did receive your questions when you registered, so we will do our best to address those. If we don't have time, we have shared this questions list with our presenters, and we will do our best to follow up with those. If you have questions as the presentation is going on, feel free to put those questions in the questions box, and we will try to get to those as well. I did want to provide a little bit of background on economic development and do some shameless plugs of some things we have going on. While we have your attention, I'm going to take a few minutes to shine some light on our work. Our Cabinet Secretary is Alicia J. Keys. Our Deputy Cabinet Secretary is Sean Clark. And as you can see, within our department, we have several different divisions, notably film, outdoor rec, Main Street. Some of you might be within these fields or in these communities, and always reach out to us if we can be of any help regarding any questions in these divisions. I did want to take some time to mention our collateral assistance program. This is an important program, I think, as we look to recovery efforts and giving our businesses some assists as they're dealing with negative impacts of COVID. This is a program that enables us to help with collateral and help with shortfalls in collateral and provide extra security to banks. So if a business is looking to do a commercial loan and the bank, especially now, is hesitating because of the uncertain economic market, we can come in and provide extra collateral. So an example might be a restaurant that's trying to buy some equipment. Maybe the bank is only willing to recognize 75% of that actual equipment. So we can come in with the extra 25% and put an actual CD in the bank for the bank to use if, unfortunately, if the project were to default. So this isn't an extra loan to the business, but it adds some additional cushion and minimizes the risk to the lender. We have a special preference within this program and a special focus to assist businesses that are in rural communities, that are veteran owned, that are minority owned, and then also putting special preference on businesses that fall into the governor's 9 targeted industries that are listed on the screen. So if you have any questions about this, reach out and we can get you more information. I wanted to throw up really quickly some other financial programs that we administer through our department. Some of these you might have heard of, some of them if not. And when we send this PDF of the presentation out, these are all live links, so you can click on these and find out more information. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to our regional reps. We have representatives for our department in 6 different areas of our state. And if you follow this link, you can find all of their contact information. Our representatives live in the regions that they represent, and they are wealths of information. They know the local players, they know our programs backward and forward, and they're a great entrance into our department and getting the information that you need. So please reach out to them. Also, lastly, I did want to make sure that you are getting information from our department and you are connected to us. If you're not, I do want to encourage you to sign up for our newsletter and update letter. You can see that on the first bullet here, sign up for EDD News. We're putting out a weekly, it's a newsletter or an update that includes pretty much a national survey, a national and state survey of financial opportunities for businesses. We place a special focus on recovery opportunities, COVID-19 resources, but we have since expanded that to include business opportunities as well as nonprofit and community resources. We're also including webinars that are happening around the state, and we are including relevant news too. So if you're not getting those, or if you're not reading them, I'd really encourage you to sign up and point other people to sign up to them too, because we're putting out every week millions of dollars in opportunities that are available in our state and nationally. Also, our website is listed here. And then lastly, you can see our YouTube channel. It's the last bullet on your screen that you should be able to see. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can see a library of webinars that we have hosted covering a huge gamut of topics. And Steve Hogan with PTAC, whom you'll hear from a little bit later, knows because we've participated in a webinar with their organization prior. So you can see that presentation as well as numerous other topics, new markets, tax credits, bonds, LEADA program, you name it, we've got it on there. So a really great opportunity to check that out and learn more about opportunities in our state. And one more plug, these are the upcoming webinars that we have. I kind of skipped to the bottom, but you can see those on the top of your screen. We are hosting kind of a follow-up webinar to this session, and we're going to take a deep dive into contracting specifically with the state. And Mark, whom I'm about to introduce with GSC, his team is going to be walking you step by step into the ins and outs of how do you contract with our state government and some of the updates that are coming out of their department. That'll happen in a few weeks on the 17th at 11 o'clock. You'll be able to register for that. And then also our outdoor rec department, they are hosting a webinar coming up on the 5th of March, how to utilize their rural development toolkit. So some exciting things going on. Stay tuned for that. And as mentioned, if you have any questions regarding our department, feel free to reach out. We are open and available. So I would like to turn it over to Mark Hayden. And Mark, I'm actually going to make you the presenter. I've got your slides pulled up, but we'll make you the presenter right now. So you should be able to share your screen. And Mark is the Director of State Purchasing with the General Services Department with GSD. So we're really excited to have him, and he's going to share some updates on what they've got cooking and a really brief overview of contracting from the state perspective.
All right, I'm fumbling here to see if I can get my screen to show. I don't think it's happening yet.
Sure, yeah, we can see it. So if you, yes, if you do the from the beginning on the slideshow, that should work.
Sorry for this. I'm not as adept as I thought I was.
No problem. We are
From the beginning, I think I got it. All right, how's that work?
Great. You are good to go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for this opportunity to speak to everyone. I think Steve and I complement each other very well because he represents more the federal side. We represent the state side. And New Mexico is definitely interested in trying to see how we can recover from the COVID pandemic and build up the New Mexico economy. So that'll be the focus of what I'm going to present here is how state purchasing through the General Services Department and the state spend can help businesses recover. So I need to advance here, enter. Here we go. So we have a Buy New Mexico initiative, and initially we had about 10 different departments as part of a consortium where we would communicate to each other, listen to the business community on what their needs are, and we were going to have an economic summit last summer, and of course everything changed after COVID hit, but it is our intent to still proceed with some form of that in the near future, and we'll keep you advised through economic development. What we did this legislative session, and that's what I want to really focus on, is SB 53. This is the first time the New Mexico State Purchasing Code has been really updated in any significant way in the last 30 years. We are trying to find ways to funnel the money that the government in New Mexico spends to its own businesses. Specifically, what we're going to do is have more of a robust preference for veteran, Hispanic, minority, women, tribal, African American, Black-owned businesses, because a disproportionate number of those types of businesses have collapsed nationwide and here as well. So our goal is to keep more of New Mexico taxpayer money in New Mexico, create jobs for New Mexico, and to help recover. If at the end of the presentation you're interested in helping support the legislation, I've got my name and email down at the bottom with my phone number. I'd love to hear from you. Right now we had an op-ed that we drafted to our initial supporters, and we probably have 30 people signed on to that. That'll be coming out in the press probably this weekend. And we have folks that are testifying at the hearings, and we probably have another one scheduled for this Friday. It hasn't been formally scheduled, but that's our intent, to hopefully have another hearing Friday. And if you want to be on my mailing list, I'd be happy to add you. So I'm going to be adding, let's see. So SB 53 legislation, what this does is it creates an advantage for the resident tribal businesses, resident women and minority owned businesses. We have somebody that's not muted, and I'm not sure if it's hard for everybody to hear. All right, so, and I'm not sure who's talking. I'll try to talk over everyone here. So we're extending the resident-owned business preference, and the idea here is, yes.
This is Joanna. I think what's happening is this is just a guess, but I think when you were sharing your screen, you might have another call going on at the same time. I saw Zoom pop up.
Oh, I will try to mute that if I can. Okay. Sorry about that. That's me on my technical ineptness.
No problem at all. We are all very accommodating and understanding these days on tech issues.
So
we cannot, at least on my end, I can't hear the background noise. We can just hear you.
Okay, and I do have another presentation right after this, so I was queuing it up, and that's probably exactly what happened. Thank you for your analysis. We are trying to extend the resident-owned business preference that was scheduled to terminate in June of next year. So the SB 53 will extend that. We also have extension of the bidding advantage for the awards to New Mexico businesses. This is a first for New Mexico, where we're going to try to do exclusive procurements only for New Mexico businesses. We've never tried this before. We think it will probably be a good way of limiting the potential competition. So I'll give you an example. Suppose we wanted to have food distributed to state agencies. Rather than open it up to the Shamrocks and the Canteens of the world, we want to just leave it for New Mexico businesses to compete against each other, and we might have a multiple award, so maybe everybody that submits a bid actually gets awarded. But that would keep New Mexico growers New Mexico food and New Mexico taxpayer money within the state rather than going to these national companies. So that's the hope. We also authorize purchasing offices in local governments to restrict contract awards exclusively to New Mexico small businesses. So that is another tool in our toolbox to try to keep the money here. And another feature of this is it'll provide for tracking and annual reporting of minority-owned businesses, awards, and spend from the state. We've never done that before either. Right now, we don't have a line of sight to where that $6 million is going. It could be going out of state, could be here. We don't know the proportions, but we're trying to add additional tools to benefit New Mexico businesses. So that's SB 53 benefits. Let me try the next one here. So this just overviews what advantages there are to businesses. The state, we spend about $6 billion every year in goods and services. We'd like to keep those in the state. We award hundreds of statewide price agreements, and once you get on a statewide price agreement, and I encourage everybody to register for the solicitations, agencies can simply reference that statewide price agreement and then write a PO. So there's no competition or RFP or ITB, invitation to bid, that they need to perform. What that does is it just allows them to basically use you as an entity and contract with you directly, because I've already done the procurement on their behalf. So that's why it's extremely important, if you're interested in participating in the state spend, that you register with not only the state Secretary of State and Tax and Rev, but with state purchasing, and use the NIGP number that corresponds to your goods or services, because that gives you direct notice of all solicitations that come from my office. So we encourage you to register. I have a couple of really brief slides here that I'll go through to show you what we can help you with. On our website, if you wanted to see it, there's the web link, and if you look under vendors, you'll see the NIGP commodity codes there, and then how the registration for the link, and then some guidelines. But if you have any questions, let's see, we have this brochure we can share with you on how to do it, and it has very detailed identification on our website of where to put things. And we have contact information. So we have this brochure available online. And then here are the contacts we have for state purchasing. Ken Ortiz is the secretary. He unfortunately couldn't be here today. He wanted to do a little intro, but he's buried with legislation, as most of us are. There's my contact information. We also have a customer service liaison, Francine Wagner, who will help you through the registration process if you need additional help. And Susan Inman is our state purchasing trainer, and she has classes every month. She's at one now. One is for the general overview of state purchasing, how to do business with the state. And she has another one that's for RFPs, which is a 3-day course because they're so complicated. She will be the presenter for the March 17th event that we have planned with economic development. And with that, Joanna, thank you. I will open the questions and appreciate again the opportunity to present today.
Great, thank you so much, Mark. We have one question, and I want to remind everyone, if you have questions, put them in that little gray box you should see on the right side of your screen for Mark before he has to jump off. Anthony has a question for you, Mark, and says, are you working with the American Veteran Professional Services, AVPS?
We are dealing with Archie Garcia, who represents the veterans in New Mexico, but the particular professional organization that you mentioned, I don't recall whether I've heard directly from them. And to be honest, I've had a lot of supporters who I'm grateful for, and they don't always identify their organization. So I don't know for sure, but we'd be happy to if you wanted to contact me after this webinar. We'd be glad to join and work with you.
Right, great, thank you. Gina had a question about how to register for the webinar that we'll be hosting in March on the 17th. And Gina, when we send out the presentation, we will include that information, and it's just a link, just like you registered for this one. we'll send that out. And it'd be great, maybe we'll get a link to Mark's, to GSD's webinars that Ms. Inman is hosting. So we'll try to do that too. And let's see, there's a question from Kimberly, and I'm going to try to get your question right, Kimberly. It just says, is it industry specific? I am not non-emergency air freight. So I don't know, does that question make sense to you?
I think it does. And let me try to rephrase it. You know, I'm sorry about this. I got to cut out. Yeah. I'm bleeding over on another presentation. The answer to your question is, it's not emergency only. It's also anybody that wants to do business with the state.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. We know you have to go. So, and we'll talk to you more on the 17th.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye. Take care. Thanks for all your work. Okay. Now we're going to switch over and we are going to have our next presenter up, and that is Stephen Hogan, who is a procurement advisor with PTAC. And I will let him explain to you what PTAC is. So, Steve, I'm going to switch you over and make you a presenter. And you should be able to share your screen too. All right, we've got it up. Perfect. Seamless.
Full screen, PTAC slide.
Yes, you're good.
Very good. Thank you, Joanna. I appreciate the opportunity to share with everybody here today. I'm going to talk about government contracting, and as Mark mentioned, it will be leaning toward the federal because that's a lot of what we do, and that's where the biggest budget is, as I'll show you. But we also support businesses trying to do government contracting at all levels, including state, city, county, school districts, things like that. So we'll talk about all that as we go through the slides here. I've been with PTAC for about 3 years now, but more importantly, I've got many years of experience before that working in the federal government with the Air Force, the Defense Contract Management Agency, also in small business and large business doing government contracting, proposal writing, pricing, those sort of things. So my goal here is to try to bring a lot of that to the table to share with you and whet your appetite for things that you're going to have to deal with if you really want to get into government contracting. So, you know, here's a few questions. We typically go around the room and talk to our guests about the things that they offer, but you just need to kind of ask these questions to yourself about whether or not the government purchases what you offer in terms of products or services. Chances are they probably do. There are a lot of questions that people have about how to get started. Will certifications be helpful? And what resources are available to you? Throughout my talk today, I'll mention things that PTAC can do to help you, because basically everything that we're going to be covering, one way or another, folds into the services that we offer, and we offer those services at no charge. And at the end of my presentation, I'll give you a little more specifics about PTAC and how to reach us. I'm going to touch on these 10 areas. It's a lot of slides, so I'm going to go pretty quickly because I'm not going to go into a lot of how-to. It's just really topical in the sense that these are areas that you need to be considering, need to be thinking about if you're going to become what we call contract ready or procurement ready in order to deal with government contracting. So the slides are organized around these 10 topics and then wrap up with a little bit more about PTAC assistance. A lot of people question, why would I even want to do business with the government? Well, here's a good indicator of why. The market out there is just huge. As Mark stated, the state deals with about $6 or $7 billion worth of purchasing every year. The federal government is considerably larger than that, in the trillions. But even at the county and city level, as you can see here, these numbers are a little bit out of date, but we're talking millions of dollars no matter where you look in terms of the entities that I'm typically talking about. Unless you get into the very smallest of towns or villages, they may not have that big of a budget. But nonetheless, there's a lot of money out there and a lot of things that these organizations need to buy in terms of goods and services. And so if you're willing to work with them and willing to deal with all these different areas that I'm going to be talking about, then this is a great market. A few things to consider up front, especially in the federal sector. They really like you to have a couple years of operational experience before you try to get your first government contract, but that's not a guarantee or 100% the case. There are people who jump in and get a contract pretty quickly. It really depends on what you're trying to do and what the competition is like, and whether or not you have the systems and policies and procedures in place to manage the contract properly. Here's some more about being procurement ready or contract ready. We use those terms interchangeably, but it really means having your business processes and policies in place ready to go. These could be your management policies, HR, things like that, safety, quality, system security, and in particular now, cybersecurity is a big deal. You want to be focused on that and make sure you have it under control before you bid on and win a contract and then you're not able to deliver for some reason. This list is not all-inclusive, and everything on this list doesn't necessarily apply to every business or every contract. So you really need to be thinking about all the different things that you're going to potentially run into depending on the type of work that you're looking to do. Another thing that's important, and this is the first of those 10 topics, is you target agencies. The federal government's huge. There are many, many agencies out there and sub-agencies that you could deal with. My advice is don't try to deal with them all, because you'll be running around crazy just spending all your money writing and preparing proposals with no opportunity to really focus in on any one area. Likewise, you don't want to get so narrow that you're sitting and waiting for an opportunity to bid on that's never going to come. So the federal government is huge. The state government is big, and there's a lot to deal with there, as well as all these different counties and many, many cities within, and then school districts and universities. So that's a lot of people to look at, a lot of different agencies or clients to consider in terms of how you want to focus your business. Also, as I go through the presentation, I'm going to try to tie a few things related to COVID and how this is impacting government contracting. I started doing this a year ago, and I thought by now we'd be done with that, but we're not. So it still goes on. Many of the things that are in here are still happening today. What we have seen is a lot of agencies have popped up with special needs. These special needs include things like specialized cleaning services, materials, hand sanitizer, masks, all those good things that you hear about in the news, as well as research. And it's not just at the federal, it's at the state and local, even down in universities and schools. So everybody has special needs that are related to COVID. So you want to be prepared, if you're able to address those. It's important also, item number 2 here is products or services. Really understand what it is that you're offering and be able to clearly explain to the government what it is you're providing. And I'm going to go through a few slides that I talk about how that's done, I guess, basically. How do we identify products? Well, the purchasing groups have created or maybe not created, but they use a system of codes that help better identify the things that they need. Mark mentioned the NIGP codes. That's the National Institute of Government Purchasing. Those are used by state and local entities. But at the federal level, we use what's called the North American Industry Classification System, our NAICS codes. And then the federal government also has probably thousands of product service codes and federal supply codes when you get down into the nitty gritty of all the details that go into those codes. And then a unique set that the General Services Administration uses called Special Item Numbers, or SINs. Those are going away, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the point here is know who you're dealing with. Don't meet with a state or local purchasing body and start talking about your NICS codes, because they may not even understand what that is. You need to talk in their language, and in that case, it would be the NIGP codes. We offer classes in preparation for our government to business events, where we actually go through a lot of detail on these codes, where to find them. And the next few slides are going to share some of that with you, but I won't have time here today to go into the details. The NAICS codes, there's well over 1,000. I think at the 6-digit level here, there's about 1,700 of them. Don't quote me on that number, but it's up there. The point is, these could be anywhere from 2 digits to 6 digits, and each one identifies a small slice, or in some cases a very large slice of commodity or a service that you could be providing. I highlight on this slide 541611, Administrative Management and General Management Consulting Services. That happens to be the most common NAICS code out there that all the consultants use for the types of work that they do. But there are many, many more, and there are codes for everything you can just about think of. Although some of these codes get updated about every 5 years, so we're a few years behind. The next update will probably be in 2022, and so there are some things in the cyber world and stuff like that, RPVs or drones and things like that that are kind of hard to find right now, but those will get caught up. Also, I mentioned product service codes. There are many, many of these codes. If they start with a letter, these are going to be service codes, as opposed to the ones that start with that are all numeric. Those are product or item codes. They refer to them also as federal supply codes. So a lot of different codes to research. We can help you with all that. I put links on these slides. You'll be getting a PDF version of the slides. So those links, I tested them out. They should all be working great. And you can go do research on these. These websites will give you search engines where you can type in keywords, or you can type in a code and see what it's really all about. Feel free to use those, or feel free to reach out to PTAC and we can help you with that. I also mentioned the special item numbers or SINs that GSA uses. This slide is kind of trying to show a transition. The old SIN structure is in the background there, which was a 3-digit, a space, and 2 digits. That's how they define things. Now they're moving under this new multiple award schedule. So all those old GSA schedules that you used to hear about have been consolidated into what's called the MAS, or multiple award schedule. And under that, they're now using codes that look more like the NAICS codes. However, in some cases, as you can see on this slide, they added some letters on the end of them. And in other cases, they've shortened them. And then there are a few cases out there where they just don't use them still. But the point is, they're trying to get away from that old SIN structure and into something that's more recognizable for people who do a lot of work with the federal government and use the NAICS codes. Again, there's a link here at the bottom of the slide that will tell you more about those and show you a very long list of codes that they use. And that way you can kind of take a look and see if you can find something in there that's close to what you offer before you make a decision whether or not to pursue this type of contract. The NIGP codes, more commonly referred to as commodity codes. Here's a link to a site that the government of Washington, D.C. has put out there that I use quite extensively to type in a keyword or a code and learn more about it. These codes are totally different. They're set up, the structure is totally different. Typically, they'll use the first 5 characters. The ones that end in 00 would be normally what you'll see procurements listed against. But as Mark said earlier, be sure to look at that website under GSD and see what codes they specifically use. So if they use the 28551 code for microscopes, you don't want to be going in and searching constantly for 2855111, because if they don't use it, don't worry about it. You want to try to learn your audience, figure out what they use, and try to speak in that language, if you will. Under COVID, we just, I just highlighted here a number of different federal NAICS codes and accompanying product service codes that we've seen an increase, if you will, in opportunities over the last year. Some of this has died down by now, but a lot of it is still ongoing. So if you have something that you think is of interest for the government, for example, in the DoD, the Defense Health Agency, and you're able to provide some kind of medical supplies they might need, you want to make sure that you have these codes set up in your registrations, and that you're searching for them in the opportunities that you want to bid on. Item 3 is marketing strategy. I'm not going to go into much detail here, but there are a lot of questions on this slide that you want to think about. If you want to be a prime, do you want to be a sub? Do you want to be part of a joint venture? Things like that. What are your constraints in terms of what type of work you want to do, where you want to do that work? How are you going to grow into the federal market? Do you want to start local? Things like that. And there are a lot of tools out there that you can use to do research in trying to figure out your marketing strategy. Don't forget about Beta SAM. I'll talk about that in a minute or two. The state of New Mexico has the Sunshine Portal. You can go in there and see who's buying what and what companies, what are your competitors doing and what are they winning, and help you formulate your marketing strategy that way. And then, of course, don't forget the cities and counties also have procurement websites with similar information. A little bit more on that. You know, you need to be prepared. You can't wait until the last minute to decide to bid on something. Be out there, be proactive, look for pre-solicitation information, forecasts, requests for information, sources sought. Get your name out in front of the buyers before they decide which way they're going to go on a procurement. And then, of course, there are various types of procurements. Again, PTAC can help you understand all these terms in more detail and show you examples of these different types of documents. And of course, along with your marketing are having the right materials. Here's just kind of a quick little laundry list and a bunch of groups here at the bottom that can help you. The Small Business Administration, the Small Business Development Centers, PTACs, and the Small Business Liaisons at various agencies are all helpful entities when putting this together. A little bit more on just figure out where you want to do your marketing. Are you going to go at the agency level to the Office of the Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization? Are you going to go further down to procurement clerks? Or on the right here is a link for all the chief procurement officers within the state of New Mexico, and this is at the General Services GSD website. I'll show you more on that in just a minute. Specific to COVID, just keep in mind that we're doing things differently still. And so if you're still holding on to your old marketing materials from 2 years ago and you forgot to change the fact that you're no longer working at that address or your phone number, you want to get a number that people can reach you, update that marketing material and make sure it's current. And any new codes that you might be using, be sure that you include all of that. Item 4, contracting opportunities. The main source for federal government opportunities is beta.sam, which is a federal government GSA website where all the opportunities are listed. This used to be known as FBO or FedBizOps. That's all gone. It's now beta.sam. A lot of people are still trying to get used to it. It's just something you got to dive into. Reach out to PTAC. We can show you all kinds of tricks for how to use it, how to set up searches, how to set those searches up so that you'll be notified when something new comes out that you're interested in. Similarly, if you register with the General Services Department for the state of New Mexico, State Purchasing Division, as Mark just said, get your NIGP code set up in there. You can also be notified when there are opportunities for you to bid. And there's a lot more you can do on that website. I'll get to in a minute. And then don't forget about all the other individual sites that different organizations have. There are specialized sites if you do very specialized work in the classified world or overseas, things like that. You just have to learn what all these are. One thing that PTAC offers is a bid match service that taps into a number of different sites and can be very helpful in consolidating these inputs if you're still out there kind of doing the shotgun approach and you know, you're not sure if you just want to focus in on the state or the federal or what, then the bid match is a good way to see what's out there across the board. Basically get registered for the ones that are important to you. So I mentioned FedBizOps or FBO has gone to SAM.gov. Here's the link to the new beta SAM. If you still use the old link, fbo.gov, it'll take you here as well. A little bit more about beta SAM. These are the pull down in the center of the screen there, the gray box kind of gives you an idea of all the different things that it offers. But if you're looking for contract opportunities, you want to click on that because the default is all contract award data, which may not be what you're interested in at the time. Also, if you're doing any kind of work that involves wage determinations under the Service Contract Act or the Davis-Bacon Act, this is where you go for these now. Here's some of the things kind of broken down for what beta SAM offers in the pre-solicitation world. This is where you go for sources sought notices, requests for information. It's important to respond to these items, these requests, because that puts you on the map with the buyer. And if you're a veteran-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, and you can do what they're looking for, you want to tell them that, because if they get 2 or 3 service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses that want to do that work, then they can set it aside for that group to bid on, and everybody else is more or less excluded. So responding to these requests up front is a good way to kind of steer the opportunity in your direction. It doesn't always work, and they still may go out to the whole world, but at least you can, if you don't try this, if you don't respond to these, they're never going to know who you are and that you're capable of responding. Then once it gets beyond the pre-solicitation stage, goes to solicitations. Any opportunity over $25,000 is expected to be posted to Beta SAM. There are a few exceptions to that, very specialized items in the classified world, and I think one agency, the EPA, has kind of refused to play along, but now I have seen some of their procurements in there, so hopefully they've seen the light, and now they're all included. And then also award data is included on Beta SAM, so you can go out and actually using that pull down that I showed a minute ago and going into award data, you can see who's actually getting the work in a particular area by searching against the NAICS code, for example. And again, PTACs, we can all help you with that, help you figure out ways to use this tool to your advantage. Also, as I mentioned a couple times now, it includes those wage determinations put out by the Department of Labor. This is the only source to get those if they're not included in your contract documents for the government. Registration is not absolutely necessary in Beta SAM, but and I explained this yesterday on a counseling session with a client. If you do register, you log in through your login.gov account, the same one you use for your SAM registration, then you can create and save these search agents. You can add opportunities that you want to follow once they come out as a source of sought, then you follow them so that anytime anything changes, you get notified. You can schedule automatic email alerts. And something that we all came to know about under the old FedBiz Ops was called the Interested Vendors List, or IVL. It's not readily apparent how to find that in Beta SAM, but if you register and you log in and you click on a specific opportunity, you will see that list, and you can add your name to that list. So these features continue to evolve, and we're here to help again in trying to keep up with all the latest changes in this system. Here are a few other sites that we use quite regularly. The Federal Procurement Data System, that's one. I think I got a slide coming up here in just a minute that I actually pulled data from to share with you. Part of that has migrated to Beta SAM, but not all of it. So it's still out there under this link. USA Spending is another good source of information. But don't forget about the state and local procurement websites where you can still see what's been bought through the Sunshine Portal. In some cases, you will find, if you go to the City of Albuquerque site, they have a procurement forecast that you can take a look at. And the same thing with a lot of these other agencies. Specific to COVID, these are just some of the unique goods and services that we saw come out early on in the pandemic. Things like sanitization, cleaning, all kinds of construction was going on to build quickly put up temporary hospitals, morgue services, all sorts of things that we just normally didn't see. So these are just a few that I wanted to share. Here's that slide I was talking about. This is an update from one I did last April. Last April, in the lower right-hand box there where it says total obligated amount, approximately $320 million. Last year in late April, that number was only $9.5 million. So this is all COVID-related money coming to firms that are located in New Mexico. So these are the search that I ran was companies whose address is in New Mexico, and the special code that goes on contract actions that identifies it as COVID-related. And you can see here, Health and Human Services, lower left corner, has the majority of that money coming to our state and to the companies in our state. Now, this is not all the money coming to our state, but these are strictly to businesses located in the state. A lot of that is Indian Health Service, and a lot of it is research money. A lot of research money going to universities and research institutes, as well as businesses that do that kind of research. And then beyond Health and Human Services, DoD is the next largest one. A year ago, DoD wasn't even on this chart. They didn't even make the top 10, but they're there now and constantly buying goods and services that are needed as a result of the COVID pandemic. So you can use this, it'll be in slides that you receive in the PDF packet, and give you some ideas of agencies you might want to target and do more research on. And you can, my contact information is on the last slide. I'm more than happy to show you how to drill down on any one of these agencies and see exactly what they're buying by NAICS code and who's getting that money. So don't be afraid to reach out to us for help in trying to decipher this in more detail. Item 5, government marketing. I think, I talked about marketing strategy earlier. Now it's a little more specific with the government, but again, capability statement, this is something we constantly talk to our clients about, is getting a good capability statement. And it doesn't have to be huge, a big brochure. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. A lot of companies just have a one-pager, maybe one page front and back, but basically including the things that I've got listed here. Business cards, your past performance, keep a database of your past performance so that when you bid on contracts, you can quickly provide that information that the government's going to ask for. And just know who you're marketing and make sure you have the right material. Don't give the capability sheet that has all your NIGP codes to the government rep from Air Force Research Lab. They won't know what those are, and vice versa. So but ideally, just keep it simple and clearly explain what it is you can do. Here's some other things to consider. I'm not going to go through all of these because these are the kind of questions that you've got to think about a little bit as to how you fit in to the market. Are you going to be a low-cost provider? Are you going to, are you the only company out there that does this? Do you have a niche audience? Things like that. All this goes into your marketing. In the case of COVID, there's a few things here on this to think about, but I think what was really important early on, and probably still is responsiveness, reliability, product quality. You've seen it all in the news, people buying lots of 1 million masks and then find out those masks aren't even of the quality that they can use in their hospital or whatever. You don't want to be the guy selling that kind of stuff. Also, here's a link to the CDC website specific to coronavirus. And I think it's important that if you're going to talk about doing anything in support of COVID, you understand what the CDC requirements are in terms of, there's a lot of different topics on this website, but in particular, if you're going to provide products, what requirements are for those. If you're going to work in a government facility, what are the requirements as an employer with your employees? Things that we've seen, just the requirement that everybody has to wear a mask to go to a site visit and things like that. It's all changed from what it was even a year ago today. The next topic is registrations. Again, I can't emphasize enough the need to get registered in the right systems. First and foremost is the System for Award Management, SAM. You probably heard about this. Anybody that does any kind of business with the federal government has to be registered in SAM. You won't get paid, you won't get a contract, you won't even be considered if you're not registered in SAM. And then parallel to that is the SBA Dynamic Small Business Search Engine. I think I've got a screenshot of that I'm going to show you in a second. And then, of course, right behind those is the State General Services Department registration that Mark talked about. And on down it goes. Even if you're not doing actual government contract work, but you're interested in grants. There's a site called grants.gov. You need to get in there and get registered. There are a lot of opportunities on that site. Same thing with the Small Business Innovative Research Program. We can help you with all these registrations, so feel free to ask. The slides that you're going to get, this is one, for whatever reason, I converted them to PDF multiple times. That box that says SAM with the little red, white, and blue hat is just going to show up as a white box on your slides. I don't know why that logo will not translate over to a PDF worth the darn. But nonetheless, here's some things about SAM that you can do with it. Primarily, the box on the left is where we operate, registering you as a contractor. We can help you get your DUNS number. We can help you get registered in SAM, get your cage code, and create that profile for the SBA database that I was talking about. In addition, there are some other things you can do using SAM as a search tool. But those are a little bit more advanced. Primarily, the box on the left is where everybody operates. Also, just a quick notice here, realize that you don't have to pay to get registered in the system. There are a lot of people out there sending out emails trying to get you to pay them $300, $500, $700 to do this registration. PTAC does it for free. It's not that difficult to do, and we can knock out a new registration generally in about an hour, and a renewal. It is a renewal requirement every year. I did one yesterday in about 20 minutes. So they're pretty easy once you get in there. And certainly don't feel like you have to pay anybody to do this. The Dynamic Small Business Search Tool is the other companion system. It's an integrated database of all the small businesses. Most of the information in there does come from SAM, but there are some things you can input, and we help our clients get through that to update their capability statement in there. The government uses this to do searches, so and so do other large companies. They look for teaming partners this way. Here's an example of a quick little screenshot I did. I just ran a quick search on janitorial services, I believe it was. And this is just a partial listing of probably 3,500, it looks like up there, that it found. The thing I'm trying to highlight here is the fact that these 3 companies in a row have 0, blank, total, nothing in their capability narrative. So don't do that. We encourage everybody to put at least 1 line in there, something saying who you are and what you do. I have heard from government buyers who say if they see a blank like that, they just skip over it because they want to know what you think it is that you can provide. So again, and then there's also some keywords and things that are not showing on the screen, but that you can also input when you set up your account with this organization. And again, we can certainly help you with that. Then within the state, Mark talked about this earlier about getting registered with State Purchasing Division. Also, the bottom half of the screen talks about the preference certifications. So we have in-state business or in-state contractor, meaning construction related preference, and we also have the veteran business and contractor preferences. Those forms and explanations are found on the Tax and Revenue website. If Senate Bill 53 goes through as Mark described it, then there will probably be others added to this list in the near future. Again, we can help you get those certifications done. This is just a quick screenshot, very similar to what Mark showed of the GSD website. And I broke it down a little bit further into the vendor area, and then if you go to supplier online registration, there's another box below that shows some of that, a number of other links, the ability to search active procurements. There's a lot of good information on this website, and you really need, if you're interested in doing work with the state, you need to spend some time there. Learn about those statewide purchase agreements and when they're coming up for renewal, things like that. We also spend a fair amount of time helping people who are interested in state procurement, so we can help work you through that. There is a link out there to a list of all the chief procurement officers I mentioned earlier. I think I provided that link. These are the people that are out there looking out for your best interests and the best interest of the taxpayers of the state of New Mexico. They want to make sure that purchases are being done properly, fairly, openly, and in accordance with the state procurement code. I mentioned price agreements for a number of different commodities and services. If you offer a particular kind of a general commodity or service, you want to look into these price agreements so that you can be considered for opportunities by smaller agencies and public bodies all around the state that use them. And of course, the state also has emergency and sole source purchases in the State Use Act for disabled industries. Specific to COVID, I just want to mention, make sure that you're registered with the appropriate agencies. Again, a lot of this is repetitive, but if you're strictly wanting to do work with DLA, there's a system called DIBS you need to get registered in. I didn't really mention yet. And then, of course, state and local, besides the General Services Department, there's counties, cities, hospitals, and schools that all have different requirements for registration, some formal, some not so formal. So reach out to us. We can help you with that. Some of these are pretty straightforward. Regulations, there's lots of regulatory requirements. Here's kind of a quick little laundry list. A lot of sources. The federal acquisition regs are the one we spend the most time in. They're quite extensive, but don't forget the state procurement code if you're dealing with the state, and then local ordinances for those entities who are home ruled and have their own procurement rules. Those are all pretty easy to find on their websites, or you can reach out to PTAC for help. The one thing we noticed during COVID was a number of deviations from the normal rules. Most of these are still in effect, if not all, and there are others that have been coming out still just in the last month or so. And all this is to help ease the burden of the paperwork or the timeline in terms of getting things on contract. A number of links here that you can go to look at some very COVID-specific material. Pricing, fair and reasonable is the key. I don't think I'm going to go into much detail here, but you do want to be thinking about how you're going to price. If you're going to be the low pricer all the time, how are you going to handle your indirect rates? How are you going to price your desired fee or profit, depending on the types of work, types of contracts. There's a lot of things to take into account on pricing. And here's just some references to some different parts of the federal acquisition regs on pricing and cost principles. But again, fair and reasonable pricing is still required. Don't be the guy that ends up on the news because you're gouging the government on something that they have to have because of COVID. I know nobody in New Mexico would do that, but people from out of state seem to be leaning that way in some cases. Watch those wage determinations, because if your work location has moved, you might be in a different county than the one where you bid the work, and you might have to make some adjustments there. And don't forget, even though some taxes have been delayed short term, gross receipts tax has not been changed in any way. It's still required to be paid on time. Accounting system, accounting practices and procedures have to be in order if you're going to do government work. Generally accepted accounting principles are a good set of rules to follow, but make sure that you have whatever system you're using, it's able to produce invoices, and it's consistent with the type of invoicing that your customer requires. There's lots of different systems out there that you'll have to interface with, depending on how broad a brush you paint in terms of contracting agencies. Here's some things that your system must be able to do. Most importantly is segregate your direct costs from your indirect costs, and segregate costs from different contracts. Also, accurate timekeeping. These are key things that the government looks for in a system. Under COVID, if you've had to change work locations or how your employees are working, you might want to set up special numbers to track that sort of thing, so that when the dust settles after this is all over and you have to settle up with the government, you've got some idea of who did what, when, and where in order to make those adjustments. And please try to avoid duplicate payments for work that's not being performed. If you're being paid on a government contract but not having to show up, and you're also being paid through a federal loan or a federal grant, be careful not to be double dipping that. The last item is contract types. And these vary quite extensively depending on how the payments are made, whether it's from fixed price, time and materials costs, and also the structure of the award. So things like those GSA contracts are at the bottom of the list here, government-wide acquisition contracts that can be used all over the country by all different agencies, and other very specific standalone contracts. So there's all different types, and really you need to take a look at what makes sense for your business. How are you able to manage the contract? Don't go after that GWAC if you're really just trying to do local work in the state of New Mexico. Then you want to focus more on standalones, purchase orders, and those statewide purchase agreements. Under COVID, we saw a few changes. Some work was going out, especially research work, under what's called other transactional authorities, bypassing a lot of the standard contracting rules, a lot of letter contracts, but probably the biggest thing is emergency and sole source procurements. And here's a couple clauses that I lifted out of some of those contracts. The first one being at the federal level and then at the state level. But again, emergency procurements, if there's a threat to public health, then this is an acceptable practice. A few final questions about contract ready. Just bear in mind, you don't get paid every day that you work on a government contract, and you don't even get paid necessarily in the month after you did the work. Sometimes it takes a little while. Once you get the system up and running and working, you can do far better than 90 days, but you have to be prepared to cover payroll and things like that until you get those systems working right. All these are other things that we talked about. And then finally, just want to remind everybody that PTAC is here to help. We offer a lot of different types of counseling, workshops, training. The bid match program I mentioned will help you with solicitation and proposal and pricing reviews if you need them. We're still operating, but from our homes. We're not back at our main offices yet, but probably will be before too long. So we'll just see how this all plays out. We're using Zoom and other web services for a lot of training, registration, certifications, and counseling. And we're still planning for year-round events. So our workshops and our training events are still ongoing. You should be getting emails about those if you're registered with us. If you're not, on the last slide, there'll be a link where you can go get registered. We are conducting our G2Bs, our government to business events, either state and local or federal. We flip-flop. We just had a state and local event early this month, and our next one will be a federal event most likely. But we have those 2, 3, 4 times a year depending. We also have a VA event coming up on March 10th. We have all these different workshops. Just let you look at that list. And at the bottom here is our Contract Ready 5-part series. This is a training program that we run. We spread it out over a few different dates, but you can get through it. You know, it takes, each one of these parts will take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to get through. And you can see it's solicitations, proposals, labor law, pricing, and then ultimately contract administration. These are the certifications we can help with. I and 3 or 4 of my coworkers are all VA verification counselors certified by the VA to help those veteran-owned businesses get registered properly. And then there's only about 5 of us in the state that can officially help with that. So reach out to us and we'll help you. These are the state preferences I mentioned and a little bit about them. Some of this may change. The $3 million revenue is going to increase to, I think, 3.5 under the Senate Bill 53 if it passes as written. Here's our main offices, Santa Fe, Albuquerque. We have 2 offices, one at the Central New Mexico Workforce Training Center on the north end of town and one at the Hispano Chamber in downtown. We also have an office in Clovis and Las Cruces, but we actually serve all cities, all counties throughout the state. And we also have access to the Small Business Development Center offices where we can meet with clients in the future. Our services basically benefit everybody in the chain here. I think we're about done. This is kind of a roadmap. The things on the left are how we get started with you, and then it goes into an education and training program to keep you abreast of everything going on. Some links to a number of different entities that can help you with your business. And there's my contact info. Feel free to reach out to me or go to the nmptac.org site, and you can pick any other of our all very qualified advisors and reach out to any of them for assistance. With that, I think I'm done. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Steve. I am going to switch the screen. Or actually, I think if you, on your end, press the button that says stop sharing, and then we'll just see your video. And I'm looking at the clock. I see that it's about 12:30, and I see some questions. So we'll try to be as conscious as we can and not take too much of your time. But I did want to address some of these questions. They're pretty short. Lily had some questions, Steve.
Okay. Did the stop work?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You're good. Thank you. Are there any DIBBS training opportunities coming up?
I am not aware of any that are being offered by our PTAC specifically. That is something, though, I believe there are some opportunities online. I could look into that. If you want to send me an email with that question, I will get you an answer for sure.
Okay, great. And she's also saying, is the women-owned the women-owned business, is that a self-certification?
So you can still self-certify in the sense that you can state you're a woman-owned small business or a woman-owned business or an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business. However, the formal certification process has to be done through the Small Business Administration, through a website called beta.certify.sba.gov. All of the PTAC advisors can help with that process. I'm not real intimately familiar with it. I understand that it's not too difficult to get everything loaded up, and then you wait. I don't know what that wait time is. I haven't seen a good timeline on it, but I have heard people tell me that they've been waiting 60 to 90 days to get their certification approved. There are also 4 or 5 companies out there who are authorized by the SBA to do the certification for you at a cost. But it is doable as a self-service or with help through the PTAC at no cost.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not familiar with this acronym that Stephen is mentioning, different Stephen in the attendee forum, but he's asking, does PTAC offer assistance to companies to be in compliance with CMMC?
CMMC is the cyber security model, and yes, we offer training on it. We don't do the certifications, but we have a lot of tools that we can share with you on things and places to go to learn more about it and to prepare yourself for it. We are involved.
Okay, great. And the next question, Stephen, is from Molly, and I know this comes up as a lot of businesses try to navigate and put value on which certification they should go after. And she's asking, are there advantages being a woman-owned business or a veteran-owned business, or can we use both?
You can use both if you qualify for both. If you're a woman and a veteran, then you can certainly be a veteran-owned small business, potentially a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, a woman-owned small business, economically disadvantaged. There's about 4 or 5 different certifications you can get with that combination, and you could also be minority business as well. The advantages, I don't, it's hard to put a finger on that because it depends on the commodity or the service that you're offering. The best thing that I can advise and what I do with my clients is we do get on beta.sam and do some searches and look for opportunities that are earmarked for any of those particular socioeconomic groups in your particular area of expertise, and see if it makes sense to register with one before the other, so to speak. Also, if you want to do business with the Veterans Administration, then having your veteran-owned small business or service-disabled veteran-owned small business verification in place is very important, because that's who they go to. And eventually, from what I understand, based on the National Defense bill that was passed in December, within the next couple of years, all agencies are going to require that.
Okay, thank you. And this is going to be the last question that I'll take. And I want to remind everyone that we will send the questions form that we got when you registered. We'll send that out to Mark and Stephen too. And they have provided their contact information, so feel free to reach out. But last question is from Gina, and this might be an appropriate ending question. Is there a form to complete to become a PTAC client, or best to contact PTAC directly? Do you want to shed some light on that one?
Go to the URL that was on my last slide, www.nmptac.org. At the top of the screen, I believe it's still a new client sign up link. And you go in and click on that link. It will take you to a list of all the PTAC advisors. Pick the one you want to work with. And then there's a short series of little forms to fill out some information about you and your business. That will notify one of us that you're looking for some assistance, and then we will reach out to you to schedule an appointment.
Okay, great. And Gina's saying, thank you, Mr. Hogan, exclamation mark. Okay, all right. Well, that concludes our presentation, and I want to share a big thank you to Stephen Hogan and the PTAC team. I see Therese Rivera is on as an attendee, and she used to, a disclaimer, she used to be the division director for a long time at EDD on our side. So we have a really great relationship with them and are so appreciative of all the work that they're doing, especially in the recovery efforts. And they're wonderful partners. And as you can see, so knowledgeable and available to help. So thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you, Therese, too.
Thank you.
And please reach out, everyone on the call. If we can be of assistance, don't hesitate. We want to be able to connect you to the right resources. So thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for your time, Steve. Okay, bye.